record our program. Tonight, we're welcoming local leaders to join us for a panel discussion about how the Tri-Cities and Kane County can work together to deal with some important issues. We're going to be joined by Kane County Chairwoman Pirogue, Geneva Mayor Kevin Burns, and St. Charles Mayor Laura Vitek. Batavia Mayor Jeff Schilke will join us as soon as he can leave a Chamber of Commerce meeting. Before we begin the panel discussion, I'm going to introduce Chairwoman Pirogue and invite her to speak about a series of town hall meetings which she is scheduling throughout the county to gather community input on redistricting.
Hi. Thank you, Jean, and thank you for the opportunity to speak about the redistricting. Every 10 years, Kane County, as you know, all counties and the state, as well as the federal government, is required to redistrict. The redistricting is to support new congressional districts, new state legislator districts, and county districts to change accordingly with the population change. In Kane County, we have seen a population growth. There's been a significant population growth in our minority population, which makes up now almost 35 to 36% of Kane County's general population, which is a significant shift. We've seen a large growth around our northeastern corridor, around 90. Matter of fact, there's one precinct right now, Rutland 2, that has 7,500 people. Normal precinct is anywhere from 500 to 800 people. So I certainly wouldn't want to walk that precinct. That's almost a voting district. So we're in the very early stages of doing maps, and what I thought would be appropriate, as well as the reapportionment task force, which is made up of county board members as well as community leaders, we're going to have a series of town halls throughout the county, in Hampshire, in Aurora, in where else? In Geneva, which is going to be Zoom. We're going to have one out in Elburn, throughout the county, to invite community members and residents to talk about what their concerns are and their needs to support a well-drawn, fair map. Now, to transition to that, not only are we looking for that input, the other issue that we have is our data. Every year, or every 10 years, it's the census data, except for this year. This year, the census data is delayed. It should have been delivered to us in March. We don't have it. We will not have accurate census data until about April or August 16th, excuse me, that we'll be able to have, but it won't go out to the public until the end of September. So we're going to be using what's called American Community Survey data. And we're going to be using that, which is the closest approximate estimate to the accurate data from the census. So what our goal is to draw this map, because we have got a July 13th deadline that we have to have a map drawn. The state legislature, state statute requires this. There's no flexibility on this issue at all. Then when we get the actual census data, we're going to do some tweaking to make sure that that map fairly accurately represents the changes in our data. We're going forward with taking a look at our minority districts, and that was presented today at a meeting. We have an approximate number of 8 minority districts, and that is in the area of Carpentersville, the northeast sector, as well as some in Elgin, and a large range in the Aurora area because of the growth of Hispanic population. So we're excited about doing this, and I'm very excited about reaching out to the community to get their input and see what they think they need and they want to have, so that we have a fair, open, and equitable governance going forward. What's really interesting, Jean, about developing minority districts is that this will allow, we have 24 districts, we'll maintain 24 districts, but if we are allowed to have, and the task force and the board votes for 8 districts, that means that that will be representative of what our population distribution is, about 1/3. So I'm very hopeful and very excited that we're going to be able to do this.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I, I should have introduced you, and so let me back up and say that Chairwoman Corinne Perot was elected to the Kane County Board in 2020, becoming the first Democrat in Kane County's history to hold this position. A resident of Batavia, she's resided in Kane County for 22 years. And now I'm going to turn it over to Patty Lackman, our moderator this evening, is well known to all of you. She's our Central Kane County League's Voter Service Chair and newly reelected, well, we'll see. Mary Ann Ness will serve as our timekeeper.
Maybe I'll be reelected. So how are you feeling, guys? How you feeling? So I'll begin by introducing the panelists who have joined us at this time. Kevin Burns has served in an elected office in his hometown of Geneva for more than 24 years as a trustee of the library board, alderman of the first ward, and as Geneva's mayor since 2001. Mr. Burns is currently in his 6th consecutive term as mayor, making him Geneva's longest serving mayor. Whoa, yeah, almost catching up to Shalky. Burns also serves on the regional organizations such as the Kane County Stormwater Management Committee, Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, the Economic Development Committee, and chairman of the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, Environment Committee, and Energy Subcommittee, and is the president of the Metro West Council of Government. In the private sector, Mayor Burns has served in executive leadership positions in the not-for-profit industry with leading national health agencies, amateur athletics, higher education, human services, and public advocacy organizations. Mayor Burns is a proud graduate of Geneva Community High School and an alum of Augustana College in Rock Island, where he earned his Bachelor of Arts in Political Science and Speech Communications. Mayor Burns is the father of 3 daughters, Emma 31, Grace 29, and Florence 27, and the granddaughter of Micah, Bosco, and Murphy. Who do you have with you?
That was Micah. She's fascinated by current events, and I thought, hey, what better way to dive right in? So,
Welcome.
thank you.
Laura Vitek is the newly elected mayor for the city of St. Charles. Is it Vitek or VTech?
It's Vitek. You said it.
Thank
Yep.
you. I should remember that from the wonderful forum we had of 4 hours. Community involvement has been a key aspect for Laura's career, which was evident in her role as 4th Ward Alderman for the city of St. Charles from 2017 to 2021, while also serving on the North Park University School of Business and Nonprofit Management Advisory Board. In the past, Ms. Vitek has served as the president of the board of directors for the West Suburban Philanthropic Network, WSPN, and in 2014, Laura received the WSPN Distinguished Service Award. In addition to the 4th Ward Alderman responsibility, Laura served as a member of the St. Charles Liquor Commission and is the former chair of the St. Charles Initiative, which currently organizes public support for the First Street Plaza project. Currently, she is also the executive director of Delta Dental of Illinois Foundation. She holds a Master of Business Administration and a Master of Management from North Park University, as well as a Bachelor of Science in Marketing from Millikan. In addition to all of the above, Laura's greatest source of pride are her 2 children, Grace 13 and Quinn 10. We will allow about 20 minutes for consideration of each of the 3 questions that we have given our panelists. Each panelist will have 2 minutes to respond to a question, and the order will be Chairwoman Pirog Mayor Burns, Mayor Shelkey, and Mayor Vitek. Alphabetical order. And Mayor Shelkey should be joining us later after he finishes giving the awards for the annual Batavia Chamber event. After that, there will be 5 minutes for the panelists to ask questions or comment on each other's responses. In the last 5 minutes, we will pose questions submitted in the chat section by audience members, and Jean will monitor the chat. Okay, the questions are, what are your priorities for using Recovery Act funds, and how, oh, and I should say our timekeeper is Marianne Noss. Marianne, raise your hand. Okay. What are your priorities for using Recovery Act funds, and how should the county and municipalities coordinate the effort? You have 2 minutes, and we'll start with Madam Chairwoman.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Well, we just got half of our check. The next check literally came in yesterday, yay. And we'll get the next half of the funding next year about the same time. So we are required to spend it appropriately, and we're under the guidance of the U.S. Treasury. So my answer may be replicated by Mayor Burns and Mayor Vitek. We're going to have a revenue reduction. We're allowed due to COVID-19. So any expenses we've had outlay from the county for COVID-19, we're certainly going to be able to reimburse ourselves. That's going to be effort on public safety, payroll reimbursement, services to contain the spread of COVID-19. And as you know, we have a number of mass vac sites. So any of those expenses can be reimbursed to us. Premium pay that we've had for some of our essential workers, our sheriff's office, our health department, our IT support has been premium pay because they've had to go beyond and above the call of duty to support the mass vac sites as well as our mobile vac sites. Things that we're looking at, and I'm looking forward to working with our community partners with these efforts, because we'll have a little, they want to agree to have a little, we can have a lot. This would be support of water and sewer infrastructure. I know we're going to be talking a bit about water later on, but we're talking about lead pipe replacement, making sure that our aquifers are stable and safe, and taking a look at making sure that the Fox River remains a clean and vital river. And that's going to become more critically important as we move forward. Equity-focused services. Now that is not so important, you would think, in the Tri-Cities, but there are deep pockets of poverty here in the Tri-City area, and those areas we have to address, and we're going to work with our city leaders to be able to start developing how we can address those issues. Some of that is with Wi-Fi. It's hard to believe that Wi-Fi is not accessible to all of our families, but indeed that is very much the case. Wi-Fi is oftentimes incredibly expensive, can cost $50 to $75 a month, which may not be affordable, and they might not even have it. So if we're going to take a look at schools, if we're going to be taking a look at job growth, if we're going to be looking at helping to support our small businesses, we have to have a stable, consistent, and robust form of Wi-Fi throughout Kane County. So that is going to be something that we are going to be looking at, and I'm looking forward to working with our city partners for that. So those are some of the things that we're looking at, and we're going to start next week on June, the week after Memorial Day. We're going to put together a committee from the county to really take a look at what Treasury guidance is. We're also going to have a series of town halls throughout the county, just like we're doing for our maps, to talk to our community leaders, our members of our community. What do they want us to spend the money on?
Thank you. Thank you. And now we will go to Mayor Burns. What are your priorities for using the Recovery Act funds, and how should you work with the county to coordinate the efforts?
Let me answer the second question first, if I may, and that's how to work with the county. Madam Chair, and I know that Mayor Vitek, and of course I know that Mayor Schulke, who will be joining us shortly, know full well that over the course of the last 14 months or so, we have worked, I believe, exceedingly well with Kane County officials with respect to the CARES Act. Mm-hmm. We anticipate that level of cooperation to continue. And I'm certainly looking forward to working with Madam Chair and her team to ensure that it runs as smoothly as it did before. With regard to the city of Geneva, it's important to note that we are anticipating a total allocation of about $2 million. $1 million this year, and then of course, $1 million next year. As Madam Chair indicated, with our city council, 10 men and women, we have to determine exactly how to invest those funds. Certainly a portion of those will be used to help recover some of the expenses during the pandemic. Secondly, we want to make certain that we are using those funds in such a way that yield an investment for our community, whether it be infrastructure, whether it be, as Madam Chair indicated, water resource enhancement, what have you. But it's premature for me to say exactly what the priorities are because the council will ultimately establish those priorities. But I'm safe in stating, and I'm confident in reassuring anyone tuning in, that the monies we receive will be used for the appropriate purposes, number one, and number two, for quality of life issues that we've all endured these last 14 or so months.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Vitek.
Sure, I think both of these individuals have said everything pretty nicely. The couple of things I will add is, as you may know, I've been on the job for now 3 weeks and Mayor Burns knows I say this at every opportunity that I can, just so, qualify myself. But I will say that what I know and what I've already come to learn is that all of you on this call should feel very grateful that we have an administrative body of individuals that works very well together. So I have no doubt that we won't, if there is an opportunity to collaborate, we will, because we do it on a daily anyways. Regarding funding, St. Charles is expected to receive about $4 million. And like Mayor Burns, we too have a 10-person city council. And at this point, between me and my staff, we're still trying to determine and evaluate what the requirements will be in the criteria, and then go to our city council to have those conversations. I too, just like Geneva and Batavia, as you know, we've had, additional costs due to COVID, and I'm most certain that those funds will be used to obviously help cover those costs. But certainly, again, we in St. Charles have been very fiscally responsible over the course of at least my tenure and even beyond. So I anticipate that the funds will be used to exactly what the eligibility and criteria requires it to be.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to question number 2. What are your priorities for managing water resources in the county? And how should the county and municipalities coordinate efforts? Madam Chair.
This is a fun one. So one of the biggest issues and the largest contaminant into our water system is road salt. So this is something that we can work with our municipalities to make sure that as little road salt gets put onto our roads as possible because of the high contaminant of that goes into our aquifer and then into the river. The next one is lead in our drinking water. Because we have a series of older homes, the city may have put in new pipes, new sewers, but have that direct line going to the houses can be cost prohibitive. And we want to make sure that we address those issues, whether or not we have water filters that are affordable, that can be subsidized, so that no matter what income you may have, you can afford to get a water filter for all of your faucets, so that your cooking water, your drinking water, it has no lead in it. And lead is, we don't want lead in water, but it is a realistic problem, especially since we have so many beautiful old homes in our Tri-City area, that some of those are still affected by lead in their water. So that would be the point of use water filters we were talking about. Kane County is also working with the Northwest Water Planning Alliance to define our water supply. And I spoke with CMAP, Chicago Metropolitan Planning Association, and they're going to be redoing and reviewing the original 2010 study on Kane County and its aquifers, because we know that the aquifers are again being compromised due to the growth in Kane County. And also what's interesting about aquifers is that they don't know a county. They just go underground. And if you're drawing from the shallow aquifers, as is Will County is, that's actually impacting the water that's in southern Kane County. So those wells are drying up, those private wells. So we want to make sure that we clearly identify what is happening with those aquifers, so we know we have a sustainable supply. The other thing is phosphorus. Phosphorus occurs because of fertilizers that are washed into the Fox River, and that increase in phosphorus, I can't say the word, it causes increase in algae and impacts our vegetation and our habitat. The other thing that we can work with the Tri-Cities is our dams. Now, whether you like the dams or not like the dams should go. They cause a great deal of pollution to the river because it collects algae and pollutants on this side of the dam and it spills over. So once the dams are removed, we'll have cleaner water. We'll have a much more robust and abundant natural habitat, which will increase our recreational opportunities, our clean water, as well as an increase in fishing. So that's what we're working on.
Mayor Burns.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for a lot of those comments. And I want to echo and perhaps amplify one issue that I'm certain most folks tuning in know this, but when Mayor Vitek, myself, Mayor Schilke, Madam Chair talk about water supply, water management, while I think the average consumer tends to think it's about the water in their community, the reality is, as the chair indicated, this is a regional challenge. Many of you, I suspect, know that our friends in Aurora and Elgin take water from the Fox River for their drinking water, for example. Geneva, St. Charles, Batavia, it's deep and shallow aquifers. And just 2 miles to my east, they draw water from Lake Michigan. So we're all drawing water from different sources, hoping that, or perhaps not even considering that, someday that water might not be as plentiful. I lived in Tucson, Arizona for a number of years, and we received our water from Denver, Colorado. And when it wasn't a heavy snowpack, we suffered. And the reality is this: every community in Kane County has implemented some form or fashion of water conservation policies. And while that's a good thing, the reality is that with expanded development, and unless we provide the care, as the Madam Chair indicated, with respect to how we work our soil, we work our roads, we develop our buildings, that does have an impact on the drinking water, which of course then also has an impact on the stormwater. I do not believe there is any community in Kane County currently built for the next 100-year flood. We will simply be inundated as the rainfalls are more frequent and they're more voluminous. And I'll give you a perfect example. The city of Geneva pumps approximately 4 million gallons of water a day through its system. The rain event that took place approximately a year ago at this time, we pumped 21 million gallons of water through our system. We simply could not keep up. So when we talk about water resources, we also have to think about climate change and the impact of that climate change. Because our structures are unfortunately old, respectfully tired, and we need to focus on the changes that are coming afoot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Vitek.
Sure. I think the only thing that I'll add to Madam Chair and Mayor Burns, because they've obviously captured everything nicely, we do talk a little bit about conservation. And so for us in St. Charles, we do have a few programs. We have premium water rates for excess summer consumption, and that typically relates to landscape and excess water service. So we've implemented those. And we're open to other programs clearly that will help, with promote conservation. Maybe to answer, I saw a question come in the chat. This won't answer it directly, but it might help. For us in St. Charles in the past 5 years, our total water consumption has fallen actually by 2.5%, even though our customer base has increased by 1.3%. So for us, maybe that's a good thing that our residents are concerned about conservation and preserving water. I know that doesn't answer the whole Kane County question, but I think, again, Mayor Burns and Madam Chair had done a wonderful job at capturing my thoughts too.
Well, we're going to mix it up a little. Third question, and we'll start with Mayor Vitek. Sorry, Mayor Burns, you're going to be in the middle no matter
No,
what.
that's quite all right.
Okay. What are your priorities for supporting small businesses, and how should the county and municipalities coordinate efforts?
Well, again, the coordination effort, I think for all these questions and any question you'll ask us is we are very collaborative in nature, and we would continue to do so with any program that the county or other municipalities were interested in doing with us collectively. In St. Charles specifically, I will point out a couple of grants. We do have facade improvement grants that run through our Historical Preservation Commission, and these are opportunities for businesses to improve their exterior. We match up to 50%, and it's $40,000 annually per business. We also have an organization in St. Charles called the St. Charles Business Alliance. And if you've been downtown, you've probably seen a lot of what they do with the Holiday Homecoming Parade and Scarecrow Fest. But some of our city's funding helps them to be able to provide grants out in the community to small businesses. We have another business incentive program for up to $25,000, and that's a 50-50 match for local businesses in our commercial corridors, really for improvements like HVAC and mechanical type things. As we shift a little bit, I think, I ran my platform on a very strong small business approach or supportive of pro business, because I was the 4th Ward alderman, and this is the downtown community, which the 4th Ward encompasses. And over the summer, and we've continued on last summer, due to COVID, and we're not stopping, we've had a very robust outdoor dining program that has been the model for several municipalities in the state. And that doesn't just relate to the downtown First Street area, but we've also worked with businesses on the east and west side to help them recover from COVID, or at least supplement some of what they weren't receiving by continuing, even though we initiated that outdoor program back when COVID first started, we're still continuing on with it.
Thank you. Mayor Burns, you're on.
I have never been to St. Charles, but I understand it's a lovely downtown community. Congratulate the mayor on doing extraordinary work. Yeah, so, obviously, echo everything that Mayor Vitek said. Last year, when all what broke loose on COVID, the first thing the city council did, and I think Mayor Vitek and certainly Madam Chair, and I know Mayor Schulke knows, most of our communities operated under executive order. So we weren't hosting meetings, but instead the council gave the mayor the authority to make all the decisions with the city administrator, then bring all those decisions back once we were allowed to meet in person and have those decisions ratified. The first decision we made in Geneva was to waive all liquor license fees for all businesses in town. Number 2, we waived all expenses related to anyone wishing to park in our parking garage. Number 3, we allowed any and all businesses to operate on the parkway as they saw fit, as long as they did not hamper traffic, if you will, or pedestrian right-of-ways. And as Mayor Vitek said, the reality is this: we're going to continue doing that throughout this year as well. In fact, we've already waived liquor license fees to the tune of about $400,000. We continue to waive parking fees to the tune of about $600,000 over an annual basis. And early on, we actually waived the city's portion of the tax on our utility bills. The good news about that is most people have, quote, caught up on their payments. But the sad news is that we still have a lot of residents who simply can't afford to pay their full bill because of challenges in their own professional and personal life. So while we celebrate the reemergence from the pandemic, the reality is this: we're far from over. And I just want to say that if we can ever be like Batavia and St. Charles, then my God, life would be good. So, and I want to appreciate Jeff Schilke for dining in Geneva, quite frankly, and quite often. So,
I've heard Geneva is a nice town too.
Yeah. It's, when I'm allowed out, I hear that.
Madam Chair, you're on.
I love the mayors.
We are fun. We are fun. So are you.
I've eaten in Geneva. I've eaten in St. Charles. I've dined in Batavia, and I've munched in Aurora. So I eat all over. So one of the things that we've done previously is with the CARES Act fund, and I'll just give you some of our numbers. $9.3 million went to our small business grants. $3 million went to our not-for-profits, which of course are also businesses. We've had $700,000, excuse me, went to our performance, visual arts, and amusement parks, which are also businesses. And we've given $100,000 to our historical societies and museums. And I believe both St. Charles and certainly Geneva have been benefited from that contribution. We also have reduced our liquor license. I am the liquor commissioner for Kane County, and we reduced our fees by 50%. So what else are we going to be doing? We look broad where the mayors look specific to their communities. We're in the early process, and we're hoping to have it up and running by next year, an Economic Development Council for Kane County. We are the only county within, thank you, it's going to be incredibly important, within the 5 collar counties that doesn't have an Economic Development Council. So we're going to be working with CMAP. We're going to be working with best practices with DuPage, Choose DuPage, McHenry County in developing what their best practices are. Taking those and putting those together, it will be a private-public partnership with funding from Kane County, funding from our municipalities, funding from our business partners to help support this effort. And what this is going to do is to develop an opportunity to support both our large manufacturing facilities, our small businesses, as well as our agricultural community, which brings a large richness to our community, both in aesthetics and in finance. We're also going to be working through that, our exports, because we have so much corn and soy. We'll be working with our agricultural community to make sure that their product can be fairly exported to those markets overseas. So that's what we're doing for both our small businesses and hopefully our larger businesses as well. Now, one of the other things that we're also going to develop is our tourism program. And so we're going to be working with the Fox River Trail, which is going to take a look at 40 miles of the Fox River here in Kane County, and to be able to develop that as a tourist destination. I talked earlier about the dams. One of the things nice without having dams to break it is that canoes have a 40-mile opportunity to meander down the beautiful Fox River unencumbered, to be able to stop at St. Charles for a hot dog, and then stop in Geneva for some ice cream.
Thank you.
Well played, Madam Chair. Nice job.
Okay, now do we have Mayor Schalke yet or not?
No, he hasn't shown up yet. So, yeah.
Okay, well, at this point in time, we're going to afford the panelists the opportunity to ask questions or comment on each other's responses. So you guys have 5 minutes. So let's start, Mayor Burns, let's start with you since we've left you out.
If I may begin with a applause and platitudes, appreciation, congratulations, and thanks to my co-panelists, or I should say my 2 panelists joining me. I can't emphasize enough, and I think either people want to ignore this or perhaps not believe it. But the fact of the matter is, Kane County, Geneva, St. Charles, and Batavia do work well together.
Mm-hmm.
We have our pride. We have our wholesome teasing of each other. We all want to be successful, but the reality is this: if Geneva is successful and Batavia and St. Charles and the county is not, the reality is we're not an island, and we will also soon not be successful. So when all of us do well, we can all celebrate accordingly. There is not a person I know who is upset where boundaries begin and boundaries end when they're visiting the Tri-Cities. The reality is, no matter where you are, you've got a heck of a place to call home or a place to visit.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say in all candor too, when Madam Chair commented about the Economic Development Commission, that is extraordinarily good news, extraordinarily good news. And of course, I offer to you not only my assistance, but the assistance of our team as well, if and ever it's needed.
Thank you.
Kane County is, we respectfully, we tend to be forgotten because choose DuPage, it's all DuPage, it's all what have you. Or it's Cook County, life is good. Kane is on the precipice of huge opportunity. And I think developing this commission is going to be extraordinary.
It will be. It'll be an amazing opportunity for all of us.
So we've got a lot of exciting things happening, and I think I'm certain that Mayor Vitek, Mayor Schulke would agree that despite how good we want to be, we still don't want to lose who we are. And that's a tough balancing act. So.
Yeah, I bet on that Vikings Bulldog game every year.
I know, so do I. I've lost $40,000 to Mayor Schulke.
Chair, do you have questions or comments?
Oh my goodness. So one of the things that I think is going to be very important is to make sure that I know the Tri-Cities work well, and we're speaking to the Tri-Cities, but we have to make sure that as we move forward with steps, we constantly take a look at and are aware of what we do impacts other communities, so that it is not, we think about the larger population centers of Aurora and Elgin, but what happens in those two centers impacts what is occurring certainly in the Tri-Cities, whether it's housing, whether it's schools, whether it's stores. For instance, there are roads where factories have been built that all of a sudden in St. Charles are requiring stoplights that before were just country roads that people would go through. So these are sensitive issues that we have to start looking regionally towards on that impact. I'm going to reflect back on the dams. I know that the cost of with the Army Corps of Engineers, and everyone loves stopping at the dams, especially in St. Charles. I mean, it is such a fun place to stop, take your picture. But the impact of having that dam removed, even though that may not be a popular thing, is going to be an important issue. And those are things that I want you to take a very careful look at, because and the same thing with Geneva. And I mean, people have been caught in the wake of the Geneva dams, and its tragedy has often, several times have occurred. But these are hard decisions to make because people like them. They think that they're pretty. I think that they're pretty, but they're private developed. They weren't developed to control the river like the Hoover Dam was. They were private development, which is causing a stress on the river for future opportunities. So this is something that I feel is going to be a great challenge for us to work together. And that's going to be as we go up the river and down the river. And it's going to take maybe 5, 10, even maybe 15 years to address those issues. But they do, in my opinion, I would ask both of you to really carefully consider it and see what your town feels.
Thank you. Mayor Vitek.
As I think the only thing I'll add is I'm an outsider to Kane County. I didn't grow up here. I grew up in the southwest suburbs. And one thing I've noticed, and again, I moved here, I chose to raise my family in Kane County and specifically St. Charles. And the more that I interact with people, we have a lot of people that have chosen to live here. And when I compare the types of recreation, the types of small businesses and the things that Kane County has to offer individuals here and residents and businesses, there's no comparison. The southwest suburbs, even municipal strength up here in Kane County, we have very strong municipalities financially, just in terms of programmatically. You can't find any of that in the south suburbs, and many of those communities are struggling. And of course, we know COVID has impacted all of us, but I feel very grateful, and I feel like I've chosen to live in a municipality. We should all feel grateful. Again, a wonderful county, wonderful municipalities that work together. I think we're just very fortunate.
Thank you. Okay, and so we have some questions in the chat. Let's see. We have a question from Margie. And we'll start with Madam Chair, will Kane County have to limit growth, especially density, to preserve water? We've sort of touched on that a little.
That's a very challenging question to ask. It is forecasted that up in the I-90 Jade Adams corridor, the population growth is going to grow specifically there about 43% in the next 2 decades. That's an enormous growth area right there. It was built for that to happen. But how that development is going to be happening is going to demand creativity and sensitivity. When best practices are that when you build housing, that 1-2 acre lots are not very effective at all because you have lots of grass. But if you built tighter communities with more open area for people to explore, to use, that is much more effective on an energy, for use of energy, both through insulation and through water use. The other thing that we're going to have to start to be aware of is use of water, so that as we are moving forward with building our homes, we may want to have systems that are closed systems. And I know this sounds interesting, but we're talking about 20, 30 years from now with these kinds of developments, so that our sewer water that right now gets cleaned and flushed into the Fox can be repurposed for our household use. Matter of fact, some of that water is actually cleaner than what's in the Fox River. So this kind of recycling of our resources, instead of throwing it down so it can go down to the Illinois River, which is where the Fox River ends up at, is something we can consider. And technology and scientific research and good stewardship is going to allow that to happen.
Mayor Burns.
It's a great question, and I think it lends itself to not only philosophy but also reality. I don't think the limited resources is going to necessarily stop the growth. I think you're going to see growth in a different way. And I'll just give you an example. The city of Geneva, when it was founded in 1835, was pretty much 8 square blocks. Right now, it's about 10 square miles. We are virtually built out. We have nowhere to go. Elburn was a day's drive 30 years ago. Now it's a quick jaunt right down Roosevelt Road. I find it remarkable and also perhaps a little bit interesting. And I know that Mayor Vitek and Madam Chair have experienced this too. When I moved to Geneva in 1974, the population was 7,000 people, and it was the greatest place on earth. And of course it grew. And it grew and it grew and it grew. We're now about 23,000 people. What I find most challenging in terms of a leadership role is those who are most recent to move want the drawbridges raised. I've lived here 1 year. I came from wherever. This is perfect. Please, no more development. The reality is development then pushed west, and we saw explosive growth. A lot of you might not be aware that there was a proposal about 10 years ago to build, I believe it was 1,700 new homes immediately west of Geneva. 70% of those students would have went to Geneva schools. All hell broke loose in the 2008 crash, so therefore it never happened. Irrespective of where growth occurs, it impacts cities, villages, and towns next door. Because when Geneva Commons was built, we saw nearly a 1/3 increase in traffic on Randall Road. As Elburn continues to grow and the commuters come east, lo and behold, it's now a 3-year waiting list to get a parking spot at the train station. And as much as we love the excitement and culture and dynamism of the large city, Chicago to the east, people still want to escape to the west. Mm-hmm. Guess what? They're escaping even further west. So I don't know if government itself can say no more. I think what we're going to see is denser housing, more efficient use of resources, more efficient building codes, and recognizing that at the end of the day, folks, there's limited resources that the earth provides. We damn well better take care of them.
Thank you. Mayor Vitek.
I won't repeat anything both of my colleagues have already stated, but the only thing I will say about St. Charles is, you know, as you know, we have a sitting St. Charles Mall, Charleston Mall down there. And so I know that back in 2017, the plan was for residential and commercial. And I would say that St. Charles does still have plans to grow and redevelop, and that will likely include more residences. So of course, I think we should be cognizant of all this. And I know that we do work to conserve water with various programs that we have, but we just have to continue to work with the county and work together to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Next question. What are the next steps you think can be taken in this area to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, to reduce carbon, and to adapt to the increasing impacts of climate change? We'll start with Mayor Vitek.
I'm the newbie. Ask me this, you asked me, this is League of Women's Voters, and I know I had a terrible answer to this. I've been learning, and I've been working a lot with Public Works and our Natural Resources Commission on this topic, and we've actually changed our structure a little bit of our Natural Resources Commission because of some of the things that I'm trying to educate myself on, and as well as our City Council. We have asked now the Natural Resources Commission to be the body that works to educate our City Council better and brings more material to us to tell us what is happening out in the community and out in the state. I do know that we just continue to work with our local senators. I know I've had several conversations with Senator Villa. It's making sure that we are very vocal about what our needs are in the county, because again, this is not a municipal issue. It won't be just solved by one municipality, but just making sure that our collective voices are heard downstate and of course at the federal level. So.
Well, the person that submitted this question is one of your residents. Nancy Dawn Van Beest is a St. Charles resident. So I suggest that Nancy Dawn call you.
Absolutely.
Volunteer to be involved in working with you.
That would be great.
It's on you. What steps can be taken in the area to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, reduce carbon, and adapt to the increasing impacts of climate change?
This is for myself and Madam Chair?
Yes.
Myself.
Yes, it's for you.
Okay. Let me give you a little perspective with respect to just the city of Geneva, and then I'll go in a more global role, if you will. In 2016, the city of Geneva signed the climate charter with my friends throughout the Midwest in a ceremony in Chicago. And we pledged to not only achieve, but exceed the Paris Accord climate goals of 25% renewable energy by 2020. We're actually at 28% now. And while we celebrate that great news, we realize there's a long, long way to go. The city of Geneva, and I want this to be heard and understood by everyone, the city of Geneva supports a path to 100% renewable energy.
Wonderful.
100%. While we may have some differences with respect to that transition time, we are unambiguous in our support for a carbon-free future. Absolutely. Some of you may or may not be aware that Geneva receives approximately 5 to 8% of all its energy needs from the landfill at near the Cougar Stadium. The methane that escapes from that landfill is actually captured and used to heat our homes. We receive nearly 20+% of renewable energies and wind, solar from a contract we have with a company called Next Era. And yes, Geneva also has interest through NIMPA in coal-fired energy. We understand the challenges that faces, but we also understand where the future is going. So that's why I want everyone to understand that while we do our very best at the local level, as Mayor Vitek said, this is not just a regional, this is not just a state, this is not just a national, it's a global issue. Absolutely it is. So as we transition, we will transition with great joy and excitement about 100% renewable energy, not just for our community, but hopefully for the entire community of the world.
Thank you. And the league is very involved in environmental stuff, and we have Bill Kale, who is our member, who lives in Geneva,
Yes, I know Bill very well.
is on the state board.
The Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition, yeah.
Mhm.
Madam Chair, your opportunity.
Well, at the brand new facility, the multi-use facility, which houses the coroner's office, and that is in St. Charles, we are looking at putting a solar field in. And that solar field should be up perhaps next year, and it'll be several acres. And that will help to power not only the multi-purpose center, but our other facilities, the judicial center and the county jail as well. So we're making efforts on that area. We're also increasing the amount and soon to increase our charging stations for electric car vehicles to make them accessible to the public. So excited about that. We are very supportive of multi-mobile modal sites and opportunities for walking paths, for bicycle paths to make them safe, accessible, and desirable. We are also working on what the transportation is going to be looking like so that we can use different kinds of transportation besides cars. So that is something that I see Mayor Shelkey, and I'm sure he'll talk at length. He can't talk at length about that with his service on those specific boards. We've also just established a contract for the unincorporated areas. So all electricity is going to be 100% purchased from renewable energy. So we're very excited about that. And moving that forward. And that's going to be tiered. It's not going to happen overnight, but it'll be quickly tiered within a matter of few years to make sure that all of that energy coming in to the unincorporated areas will be able to be use of renewable energy. So we're doing everything we can on a countywide effort to support that. On a smaller front, which is just critically as important, our forest preserves are very supportive of making sure that we have natural plantings put in them, which of course helps with oxygen and doing all the right things for our air and making sure our air is clean. We're also looking at making sure that our farmers have best practices in place so that there is a sustainable way to keep the fields appropriate so they're not just plowed, that there's growth that happens, which will support that can be plowed under during the spring planting season. So these are things that we're looking at doing and implementing.
Thank you.
If I may, I want to give a shout out to one of our newest board members, Mavis Bates from Aurora, who is one heck of an environmentalist. So she's helping to lead this charge.
And she is a member of the Aurora Area League of Women Voters. Oh, Mavis. And now we can welcome Mayor Jeff Shelkey, my mayor, a sixth-generation resident of Batavia and currently serving in his 40th consecutive year as mayor of the Western Chicago suburb of Batavia. He has been elected to 11 consecutive terms. He worked for a number of years as a local journalist and has co-authored books on topics ranging from local history to the International Fire Service and is currently a licensed realtor in the state of Illinois. Mayor Shelkey is a distinguished alumnus of Waubonsee Community College and Aurora University. In 2005, he was named Citizen of the Year by the community, the first time the award has been given to a person while holding public office. Welcome, Mayor Shelkey, and I'm going to start with one question for you. And that question is, what are your priorities for using Recovery Act funds? And how should the county and municipalities coordinate the efforts? You have 2 minutes, and my friend Mary Ann over on the right is the timekeeper. So you're on, Mayor.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to join you here. I apologize for being late. We had the Batavia Chamber of Commerce Citizen of the Year dinner tonight, so we named that. I had to be part of that award presentation, so that's where I've been. I'm thankful, and again, I take my hat off to the league for continuing to enhance the dialogue, because I'll tell you, after my 40 years I've served here, there's never been a time more critical in the history of the region then we have some enhanced communications about all the variety of issues that are going on. And specifically the whole CARES Act funding as it's rolling out of the federal government. In addition to the mayor of Batavia, and I was limited as to how much I could talk about myself on your bio, I serve as chairman of the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning's Council of Mayors in downtown Chicago, and we're the ones that oversee and program and distribute the federal transportation dollars in the 7-county region surrounding the city of Chicago, including Chicago. So I get to know a lot of mayors, and I will tell you there's a huge amount of concern about what the CARES funding is, how much it's going to be, whether it will be continued. That supposedly we're going to have 2 more distributions of it, but there's a lot of concern, and unfortunately there's been a lot of misdirection, I will describe it, of the money by some of the cities have taken it and done stuff with it that they're now having their hands slapped and are being told they have to return some money or change things around. I'm very proud of the fact that, as far as I know, everyone in Kane County has handled the money okay, and we've all gone forward and done the stuff we were supposed to do. Obviously, the main thing was to kind of pick up any losses or expenses or demands you had for the CARES funding as it applied to the epidemic that we've just been dealing with. And we have had a lot of people show up, and we've been able to fund some people that needed some funds. We've been able to fund some businesses. But most importantly, we've been able to pay ourselves back for all the police and fire and specifically ambulance calls that we've had as a result of the coronavirus and all the issues that surrounded it. So we've got I think we're all probably pretty whole because of it. So my 2 minutes up.
Oh, okay. The next question, what are your priorities for supporting small businesses, and how should the county and municipalities coordinate the efforts, especially since you just came from the chamber function?
Well, I would tell you that in the case of Batavia, we have a number of grants that we hand out. You have to be able to show us what it is you want to do and what the benefit's going to be. And we try to keep most of them under the $25,000 range. We use funding that we get from our TIF tax increment financing districts, and we have several in downtown Batavia, and we use the incomes that come off of that to pay for some of this grant money that we give out. We have had a lot of applications. We've had some that we've had to say, no, we can't, because we've got some that have some other stuff going on, and some of it may involve police investigations or other things. So we have to sometimes bring people in and say, well, we'd like to help you, but there's this issue, and this issue. So that's, I guess, one of the upswings or the downswings of small town America that we're all here representing is that you probably know everybody almost on a first name basis. You know who's trying to pull a fast one on you and who isn't. And there has been some folks that have tried to recruit some money from us that we've had to say, now, after we take a second look at it, this doesn't qualify, or you have to show us your records that you've spent the money for the way you'd spent it. And we've had a couple say, gee, we don't keep good records. I mean, there's been a lot of movement on it. So it's been a kind of a real moving target as far as how we go. But I think if we do have some extra federal money coming in, that's one of the ways we can spend it. I will also offer the observation that many of the mayors I deal with in the region are seriously concerned about just how much at the end of the day money the federal government is really going to have to continue to fund things like they have been funding in the last year and a half. It's a huge amount of money's rolled in, and we're beginning to wonder, are we going to someday have to pay all this back, or how's all this going to come together? And the federal government's one level, the state government is also a very high element of concern because their funding seems to be very restricted and needs to be probably watched very, very closely. There's a lot of people say the state government doesn't have much money to do much of anything, and they've got to be very careful about what they do.
Thank you. We have time for one last question for everyone, and we are going to start with Madam Chair. And this is from my friend Pat Engel. Is there ever any conversation or consideration to eliminating townships and duplicity in the county and the Tri-Cities? Examples would be library, park districts, schools, to name a few. Madam Chair?
We have not had that conversation at the board level yet. Like Mayor Vitek, I've been in office since December and been fighting COVID and now redistricting. So my priorities right now have been making sure that Kane County is healthy, that we can open up for business, and that our children are able to go safely back to school. And I think those are wise priorities right now. Perhaps and now also distributing $53 million or a total of $103 million, and do it wisely for long-term investments, not short-term needs. So these have been my priorities right now. Perhaps in the next 2 years, we can review that. But in all honesty, that has not been a major discussion at this level.
Mayor Burns?
I think, Patty, you'd be interested to know that just recently, we actually voted on whether to consolidate St. Charles and the county, but we didn't get enough votes for that, so it was a tough call. The issue regarding, if I understand Pat's question, is the issue regarding consolidation of townships or all forms of government?
It's townships and like parks, libraries, school districts. So it's both. Or all.
There's certainly been discussion over the years, over the course of probably the last 25 years. In fact, there's been language introduced in Springfield over the last 25 years regarding the elimination of township government.
Mm-hmm.
The city of Geneva's position on the elimination of township government is a neutral one, because the reality is someone is going to have to take over those services. And while we're more than happy to have that conversation, we have no official stance over whether we should eliminate Geneva Township. With regard to the other governing bodies, I would argue, and perhaps Mayor Schilke, the Dean of Mayors, would agree or disagree. I think it's unlikely that that would happen, but I will share with you a nice story. Many, many years ago, Mayor Schilke may know this gentleman. We had a gentleman on the city council who ran for mayor on the platform of consolidating the Tri-Cities. He was not successful, but nevertheless, would have been called St. Genevia, and would have been a hell of a place to call home. So.
Okay. Mayor Vitek?
Yes, so I think as Mayor Burns just suggested, I would refer to the Dean of Mayors on this one, because I believe my first day in office, we had lunch together, first day after the election, and he was educated me on the whole township discussion. And so, who's going to pay for that? But I will say, I just will point to something that he also educated me on, and I know he's a big proponent on, is we do as municipalities sometimes try to consolidate services with something like Tri-City Ambulance. So we try to share our resources in certain areas where it's applicable. And, I don't want to get into the area where I'm not an expert, but he definitely is. So I know he's next. So I'm sure he'll touch on that.
I want to know where you had lunch. Was it in Batavia?
It was in St. Charles.
Mayor Schilke, Dean Schilke, I guess we're calling affectionately.
Well, I was start out by sharing that in my role in Chicago, where there are 284 mayors and village presidents that are on my list to answer questions to. It's a very common report by area mayors that they get calls all the time from people who want the mayor to take some action as it involves their public school system. They don't like their teacher. They don't like the bus stop. They don't like parts of the curriculum. And they want the city mayor to be, and so you say, why do you want the mayor to get involved? Well, I turned on TV and I saw the mayor of Chicago running the school system. So don't all the other mayors in the area run their school system? Well, as it works out, the mayor of Chicago is the only mayor in the state of Illinois who runs their school system. And I am told that that was created way back as a political patronage situation, because by the mayor controlling the school system, he then controlled the janitor, the secretary, the bus driver, the whole shooting match. And so he could then dictate who was going to do what and whatever. And so Chicago's kept that to this day. There's the mayor still in there. And I think I have met her several times, and I think she rather would be without it if she could. As far as consolidation goes, that's an ongoing question. We, the Tri-City mayors in the last 30, 40 years have made a deliberate effort to consolidate our businesses. And specifically right now, the first one was the 911 call-in service, TRICOM. We did that many, many years ago. And then in the early 80s, we consolidated the ambulance service. And now we have just received 2 years ago an award from the governor's office as running the best consolidated local government service in the state of Illinois in the person of the Tri-City Ambulance. And we now have 6 ambulances on duty 24 hours a day, 2 in Geneva, 2 in St. Charles, and 2 in Batavia. And they are borderless as far as if there's 2 calls in Geneva or St. Charles or 5 calls or whatever, there's all these ambulances that are immediately available, no questions asked. So now we've extended that same idea to the fire department. So if there's a structure fire in Batavia, Geneva, or St. Charles, 3 tones go off, all 3 departments respond. If there's fires in Geneva, Batavia sends a pumper and 4 men, and St. Charles sends a ladder truck and 4 men. So we're right there in the middle. And then if I have a fire in Batavia, Geneva sends a pumper and St. Charles sends their ladder truck. So we're working consolidation all the time.
Thank you. Thank you. And at this point in time, I would like to thank all of the panelists for participating in our annual meeting, which normally is at a restaurant in one of the Tri-Cities. Maybe in the fall, it will be, or next year, it'll be in one of the restaurants in the Tri-City. And you can submit your bids to where you want it to be next year to me. And I'm willing to try them all out, just to.
Patty, may I just suggest that we have it at the mill race?
Okay. And now I will turn it over to Jean Pierce.
So thank you all for being with us tonight. We truly appreciate your participation, your insights, and what promises to be some very promising coming years of collaboration among the mayors and the county.
And the
Thank
League
you.
of Women Voters.
And the league. And now we invite all of our visitors to